All right, this is from the people. What do you think about Trump's proposed $5 million gold card visa for wealthy foreigners? Is it smart economic move or a problematic policy? I guess I know what he's talking about. Trump wants to sell a visa. You get permanent residency. By the way, I looked this up, we are hardly the first country to do this. Doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. But, you know, I remember...
Yeah, we actually have a version of it. It's called, I think it's called the EB-5 or something like that. So it's fine to do it. I actually think, maybe it's because I'm, very patriotic. I think 5 million, we should be charging 20 million, or, American citizenship is worth more than that.
It comes with Ukrainian minerals, though.
But what I love about Trump is he said, you get the green card, but with this, the gold card, you get extra privileges. like what? You get to vote twice? Or what?
It's amazing.
Well, now you're speaking Chicago language.
In this video, Bill Maher didn't hold back in a fiery exchange that left a CNN host struggling to defend the network's credibility. Live on air, Maher confronted the host about CNN's role in fueling division, exposing how mainstream media's biased narratives have contributed to public distrust. As Maher dismantled the network's credibility in real time, the host was forced to acknowledge uncomfortable truths about the industry's role in polarization. This viral moment has reignited conversations about whether legacy media will ever take responsibility for its influence or continue to double down on partisan storytelling. With CNN's viewership in decline and public skepticism at an all-time high, Maher's takedown serves as a wake-up call for those still clinging to the idea of objective reporting. Will CNN finally address the growing criticism, or will it continue to lose trust and relevance? One thing is certain. Bill Maher once again proved he isn't afraid to challenge the status quo.
But I think to be fair, this is actually...
I was being fair.
No, this is a huge Democratic Party problem. If you look at Democratic cities, they are terribly run. They have incredibly high taxes. It is impossible to build, so the cost of housing... Let me finish, I'll give you a chance. The cost of housing is crazy in places like New York and Chicago. If you look at Democratic states, you go to look at New York versus Florida, okay? Roughly the same population. The budget of New York State is twice that of Florida. What do they have? Streets paved with gold? I live in New York. I pay the highest taxes in New York. You get nothing for it. And I think that is the image people have of the Democratic Party. Lots of taxes, lots of regulation, but nothing gets done.
Hey,
and I
live in L.A.
Right. Listen, the Democrats have to own this and realize the answer to everything is not more taxes, more regulation. People are fed up of that, and they feel that it isn't working.
The Democrats, look, as somebody who produced the best graduation growth in the country,
high taxes and excessive regulations are strangling progress in America's biggest cities, making it nearly impossible for businesses to thrive and for ordinary citizens to afford a decent quality of life. Zakaria argues that Democratic-led cities have become overly bureaucratic, with layers of red tape and sky-high taxes that drive both businesses and residents away. He points to cities like New York and Chicago, where the cost of living has skyrocketed while basic public services remain inefficient. Comparing New York's bloated budget to Florida's leaner approach, Zakaria emphasizes that throwing more money at problems isn't the solution. Cutting unnecessary regulations and making government work smarter, not bigger, is the key to revitalizing urban centers. While debates over taxes and regulations are important, Emmanuel believes that cities rise or fall based on three fundamental pillars: safe streets, strong schools, and stable finances. Without a focus on public safety, education, and responsible budgeting, no amount of economic policy adjustments will fix the deeper challenges plaguing urban areas. Drawing from his experience as mayor of Chicago, Emmanuel argues that when these core functions are prioritized, cities become more livable, businesses thrive, and families stay. Instead of getting lost in ideological debates, he urges leaders to focus on practical governance, ensuring crime is under control. Schools are producing well-educated graduates, and city finances are sustainable for the long term.
You were a good mayor. I agree.
No, that's not the point. The point was but I'll take that. The point isn't the rules. The point is the results. And the party has gotten way too focused on what the rules are. And I do agree with you on this. We have made it impossible to function as a city or as a state, and been so, take an example of this example. Here, obviously in LA, it took a fire and a natural disaster to make you realize, you know what, that rule's not that important. In Pennsylvania, a bridge collapse, all of a sudden we go, well, that environmental rule is just not important. We got to build a bridge. It's much more important. And I think the Democratic Party should take a look at it and say, we're going to be honest, like we did in 1994 with reinventing government. Everything is on the table. Nothing is safe. And we can just look at it and say, that's essential. Those two things get out of here. And that doesn't happen. And that's a fair criticism.
Maybe this is your next Democratic vice presidential candidate, maybe presidential candidate. And by the way, he's also, that counts as handicap. You can slip him by.
This gets you handicap parking right here.
In my view, the debate over the Democratic Party's governance challenges is not just about partisanship, but about the effectiveness of policy implementation. Critics argue that Democratic-led cities like New York and states like California have become cautionary tales of overregulation, high taxation, and bureaucratic inefficiency, policies that, while often well-intended, have contributed to rising costs of living, business flight, and public frustration. This stands in contrast to states like Florida, where a Republican-led approach of lower taxes and deregulation has been credited with economic growth and an influx of new residents. However, the issue is more nuanced than a simple red versus blue comparison. While some point to Florida's economic success as proof that limited government works, others caution that aggressive deregulation and tax cuts can lead to underfunded public services and social inequalities. At the same time, Democratic leaders argue that higher taxes and regulations fund crucial infrastructure, social programs, and protections for workers and consumers. The challenge for the Democratic Party is balancing these priorities, ensuring that progressive policies don't stifle economic opportunity or create an unsustainable financial burden on residents. More than a question of ideology, the growing dissatisfaction with democratic governance signals a political reckoning. If the party wants to maintain its influence in major urban centers, it must address public concerns over affordability, crime, and government efficiency. Otherwise, as seen in recent elections, voters may begin to shift toward candidates, regardless of party affiliation, who promise pragmatism over partisanship. The future of the Democratic Party depends on whether it can prove that progressive policies can deliver real-world results without compromising economic competitiveness.
That has way too much time on their hand.
No, this is the thing that's going on today.
It mistakes. This is why I was saying that there really is a movement of people doing interpretive dances to protest the Trump administration's cuts of USAID. I mean, like, people are starving. You know, the thing about not winning, as you said, is you're left with these kind of absurdities, right? The answer is figure out how to win elections. You know, that's. I mean, yes. Watch the Democrats. Listen to the Democrats about Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, both of whom you worked for. So these are the only two Democrats since Franklin Roosevelt to have won 2 terms, right?
Yeah.
And what does the party say? They did everything wrong. We've got to get away from this. Like, wait a minute. They're the ones who won the elections, right? Bernie Sanders didn't win. AOC hasn't been president recently. Like, you know, the Labour Party does this with Tony Blair. They're like, Blair is horrible. It's like, he won 3 elections.
Yeah, let me give you breaking news: 100,000 new community police officers or defund the police. Now, which one do you think is more? It's crazy on this part, but it's an example of this. I think the party, you know, if you're talking about interpretive dance and everything like that, and what's really crazy about where the party's gone, it's taken an identity politics that the only way you have a moral standing is you're somehow been hurt. And that is insane. And if you want to take a moral standing of an identity politics based on where you've been hurt, then we're going to do it about the working and middle-class families of this country who's gotten the shaft over the last 30 years. And that is where we should go.
The idea of an economic boycott, such as the proposed no-spend day, reflects a growing frustration with corporate power and economic inequality. But the effectiveness of such symbolic protest remains highly debatable. The premise behind the movement is that by refusing to spend money for a single day, consumers can send a message to billionaires and large corporations about their dominance over the economy and political system. However, as the panelists pointed out, this type of activism is largely performative and unlikely to have any tangible impact on the financial giants it aims to challenge. A one-day spending freeze does little to alter corporate profits, and those participating will likely make purchases before or after the protest, negating any real economic consequences. Rather than engaging in temporary symbolic gestures, the panelists argue that those frustrated with corporate influence should focus on more meaningful avenues of change, particularly through political engagement. Winning elections, influencing policy, and pushing for legislative reforms are far more effective than fleeting boycotts that may generate online buzz but lack real-world impact. The discussion underscores a broader issue with modern activism: the tendency to prioritize social media-driven protest culture over sustained political action. While economic inequality and corporate overreach are legitimate concerns, real change requires more than performative resistance. It demands strategic, long-term efforts to shift power structures through governance, policy, and elections. Thank you for watching. We appreciate your support and engagement. If you enjoyed this discussion, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more insightful content. Stay tuned for more in-depth analysis, debates, and thought-provoking conversations. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update.